Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Worship Guitar Show. Great to see you. Been a minute. Great to be back. We have got a lot of things to talk about, and I'm excited to hear from you. So do me a favor, first of all, after the various salutations and all of that great stuff, we would love to know what you want to know. And this whole thing of concept of what next, right? This whole thing as guitar players, we have a tendency to get stuck in a rut or a bubble or whatever it is that we get stuck in. And whatever it is that's on the outside of that rut or that bubble is what I am most passionate about helping other guitar players find, be it worship guitar players, be it any type of guitar player. And increasingly, the focus of what we're going to do here is going to be really trying to deconstruct what actually is. So I would love it if in said chat, you guys, first of all, hello, hello. And so, what actually looks like, here is the thing is that this past week I was at Summer NAMM, and before that I was teaching at the Paul Gilbert Guitar Camp. Lots of notes, but in preparation for that camp and just kind of where I've been at as a musical educator, both in the worship lane and in the mainstream lane, I've been really trying to look at what is it that gets guitar players stuck in a rut, keeps them in that rut. And, in the mainstream guitar, secular guitar, if you will, I have a really clear idea of what that is because one of the things that happened at the Paul Gilbert camp that was really insightful for me was early on in the camp, 80 or so guitar players lined up and each jammed with Paul Gilbert, which could be, for those of you who know who Paul Gilbert is, and even if you don't, in front of a room full of guitar players, it can be slightly intimidating. And it was interesting to watch kind of how the guitar players kind of dealt with that and kind of some of the, hey, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Oh, I love this. Come on. We're going to talk about micro practice for you. And how, between that and then the next time, because Paul, a couple of days later, gave the students a chance to come up and jam with him, how much better people were the second time. But it's analogous of like, you step up to the plate. What have you got just kind of the moment that you step up, ready to go? And that is the case for worship musicians, but it's a little bit different, right? Did we have our sound styled? Did we have our tap tempo? Did we have the right guitar? Were in-ears settled? And what happens when those peripheral things are wrong? And how does that impact our playing, right? So, again, I have, as a worship guitar player, I'm not totally clueless, but at the same time, I think there's a very finite group of things that are troubling people that I want to know what's giving you a hard time. Because again, in watching, at the Paul Gilbert camp, kind of going, okay, boom, 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 boom. And literally, if I were to stretch out the comments that I made in text, it would have been, I don't know, about that long as I was kind of making little comments to myself about what I saw people challenged with. And I can, kind of start by translating some of that to the worship guitar side of things. And, here's the thing, Matthew. I love that. So the great thing is, what if we could make noodling part of practice, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with noodling. And, initially I was going to call tonight something about, discovery and inspiration and all that. But I really, really, really want to make this show something that has maximum value, both around getting better on the instrument, getting better on Sunday, as Bruce and I would say, better by Sunday, and also just kind of like, what are some of the important pieces of gear that we want to be talking about? What are the things that we need to be aware of? What, new developments? Should we be talking about MIDI? Yeah. Can MIDI make our world better? Yeah. And if we're not talking about kind of, a show dedicated to MIDI, and we're not talking about a show dedicated to, Axe effects and to the rev amps and the Celestian full range live response speakers, there are things that we're missing out on. Or, ideally, maybe it's like a magazine packed into a guitar show where we're talking about a range of things, such that we're always kind of staying, up, not just having something new about new gear for the sake of it, but if there's something new that's appropriate for our world, that would be great. So that said, first of all, great to see everybody, and I am able to see everything coming in from YouTube, but I want to make sure I catch everybody. Forrest, great to see you. Wayne, hello, my dear friend. Brenton, hey, what's going on? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So great to be back, and fabulous to see everybody here. So again, the interesting thing is that one of my favorite things to say is not everybody plays worship guitar, just plays worship guitar. So that means, as we're working on technique, how much of what we can cover here is appropriate to bring into worship. I'm going to go into the mainstream side of things for a minute because it's valuable. For me, one of the things that I'm working on helping guitar players do with this curriculum I'm putting together is getting guitar players confident playing across the neck, diagonally, and linearly. And this means that you are able to do a couple of different things, some of which is going to spill over to what we want to be able to do. It means that, for example, for this G major scale, we can go 1, hold a 2, hold a 3, half to 4, hold a 5, hold a 6, hold a 7, half to 1. We can go G, hold a A, hold a B, half to C, hold a D, hold a E, hold a F sharp, half to G. And then we can kind of begin to think of that as 1, 2, and 3, and G, A, and B. 2, 3, and 4, and A, B, and C, so on and so forth. So we begin to be able to, instead of just kind of being stuck, whether it's with a capo, and kind of going, okay, let's, if we're in the key of B flat, capo 3, I play my G shape there, as opposed to, hey, what's really going on with a B flat major chord? Being comfortable enough being able to go, okay, all right, B flat, hold to C, hold to D, half to E flat, hold to F, hold to G, hold to A, half to B flat. The key of B flat is not actually all that scary, but if we spend all our lives at capo 3 playing a G shape, not that there's anything wrong with that if you so desire, but it means that we are putting ourselves inside one of the boxes that I know worship musicians constantly end up in, which is like, hey, I live by the capo. I'm not a capoer, generally speaking, but there is a lot to be said about being able to place a capo someplace. And first of all, if you're a beginner or intermediate player, having the comfort of being able to, hey, you know what? I can play this G shape here, capo 3, I'm in the key of B flat. Awesome, that's great. However, at a certain point, that becomes the kind of the post through which we kind of begin to tether our guitar experience. And that works really well in worship, but as we want to become more masterful in our instrument, we then begin to kind of go, well, where do I begin to look? And generally speaking, one of the guitar players that I interacted with at the camp really talked about kind of having this kind of, they look at the guitar through this kind of little baby scope, and they gradually are able to kind of take wherever they start and kind of expand that. And I think that sense, whether it's, capo 3 in a G shape, or, just playing the same chord shapes over and over, is where many guitar players live. They just kind of have this little, this small view, and they just try and expand on that. And that's where this linear sense of the instrument becomes really valuable. As it works for worship musicians, the concept of being able to play chords at voiced 1, 3, 5, as in, that's the 1, that's the 3, and the 5, and just continuing that on like we've talked about before. That would be for G major. For C major, and for D major, so on and so forth. And then you can begin to mix and match those different forms. As I was playing this little shape right here, that's voiced 1, 3, 5. As I was playing this little shape here, it was voiced 3, 5, 1. As I was playing this shape here, it's voiced 5, 1, 3, which means that we can begin to mix and match those shapes. Basically, that's 1, 4, 5, 1, 5, 4, 1. And it's nice to be able to use our, let's go 1, 4. 1, 1, 4, 5, 4. That's G, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and D, 5. Sorry? Good to keep your inversions and your roots in mind. So basically, that's a G major. That right there is a C major. My root is right there. There's my C. And that's my D major. Now that I figured out, there's my root there. So that's G, C, D. That's how the roots are going. The idea is we can start with those triad shapes and those inversions and begin to add some other notes to it. You get the idea. So that is one of the places where, ironically, we're creating a box to live in, but it allows us to not have to be reliant on cowboy chords, or if we capo 3, the cowboy chords that we would play there. Not, again, that there's anything wrong with that. But the idea is we want to have as many different things that we can pull out of our hip pocket when we so desire. Again, this whole thing about that's utilizing basically the range of 4 frets simply across 3 strings, and the ability to manipulate chords and own that experience is a really valuable thing. And it's kind of what will happen. I remember being across the platform one Sunday, watching the keyboardist just kind of changing 1 or 2 fingers on the right hand, just kind of going, I need to learn how to do that. Because they really clearly understood that was GBD, that was basically GCE, and that was F sharp A D. And the ability to just kind of toggle between those notes, see the common tones, and see the tones that weren't in common. It was a very valuable way to be able to have a deeper level of understanding. Now, why do we want to have a deeper level of understanding? That's a good question. I think most guitar players stay stuck in the same box because the new analogy I came up with while I was, it's like a plant. You ever had a plant and you keep it in a small pot? You don't grow a big plant in a small pot. The roots just can't continue to grow. And with small roots, you just have a small plant. So the idea is being able to expand and be able to have nutrients as you grow as a guitar player is really important. Okay, let me just jump over to Facebook here and see. Great point. All right, thank you, Wayne. I really appreciate that. Capo can become a crutch or an easy way out to not memorize the sharps or the flats. Absolutely. Chris Lewis, what's going on, my friend? Great to see you. Always a great pleasure. Knowing what fills... okay, hang on a second. So, Wayne, I can't bring this directly in because of how I have to connect to Facebook. So I'm going to read this a little bit. Knowing what fills to enhance worship and dynamics is extremely important. For my small church, I don't need a ton of effects as opposed to my own music. I play much different during worship because it's not about me. Absolutely. And that is, it's a funny thing. You've touched on a really important topic that we can kind of take a moment. And first of all, again, hello to everybody. Thanks for joining in. So your church and my church and the person to the left and the person to the right, if we were to geographically kind of compare and contrast, the musicians, the vocalists, the arrangements, it's all different. So there is not a one-size-fits-all thing. But there is kind of the ideas like, hey, if we're a 2-guitar player team, then we want to begin to think about who's at the bottom of the neck holding some of the bigger chords. And who's with a swell. who's creating texture, who's not, right? Then the idea is like, well, when do we go big? When do we go small? Again, one of the things that I've talked about a lot is mapping dynamics. We're walking through an arrangement with a pencil and kind of with the team kind of going, all right, so it's a 6. And even if the rest of the team isn't going to do it, writing with a pencil, where do I go to 6? Where do I go to 10? Where do I go to a 2? 2, probably not much drive, if any. Traditionally, that's probably a place where we don't want to then kind of think about the different textures. And again, most guitar players, when they think about the other musicians they played with historically, like, oh, I really like the way that guitar player does swells. I got to learn to do that some way. Or, maybe I really like the way they can kind of hang out at one spot on the neck and they seem to really understand the chords really well. I got to learn how to do that. Most of us have a couple of areas that we know are blind spots. So I encourage you to attack those. And in my Shredder Doug world, I'm doing exactly that. And I'm trying to identify, again, these same things in Worship Doug's world or with other worship guitar players. And so the point, awesome. Thanks for the thumbs up there on Facebook. Here's the challenge is that because so many congregations are different and a different drummer and bass player, which means the rhythm's going to be completely different, what we play contextually is going to matter greatly because we're playing in relationship with the drummer and bass player. So first and foremost, at the top of the list of what I think the worship guitar players should be paying attention to, once you know the songs, you want to be paying attention to the drummer first. Not finally, but first. Why? Because they're going to give you your dynamic cues. Here's the thing. The drummer is the one that's loud or soft. And if they're playing loud the entire time, you get soft, there's probably not much of a way for you to have that contrast that you would like. Different conversation. Once you've kind of mapped what the drummer is doing, it's giving you a sense of, is their snare drum right on the beat? Are they pulling back a little bit? Are they kind of pushing ahead maybe with the hi-hat? What's happening there? Once you've got that happening and you're kind of aware of where they are, then the worship leader is the one to kind of follow because you've got to kind of find that halfway spot where if the worship leader is coming up and down and maybe the drummer is not as dynamic, you've got to find that place to sit such that you're not pushing the worship leader out of a zone where they can sing comfortably, but you're also playing relationally to the drummer. So it means that there are a couple of things that you need to be paying attention to. And yes, if there's a second guitar player, you also want to be paying attention to that as well. And unfortunately, these are things that we don't talk a lot about on teams, simply because we don't do an awful lot of team training as a general rule. But, there's always room for improvement. Let me take a look at this. And again, hello everybody. Chris Alexander. I've been known to noodle as well. Let's see. How about there we go. Oh, I love that. That's great, Alan. So one of the other things I was kind of combing through before the show, taking a look at some of the different videos that I posted to the channel. What seemed to be resonating with people, and again, there's this algorithm with YouTube, and YouTube sometimes decides what's going to resonate with people. But ultimately, when you look at what people are looking at, one of the things was a worship bass player rig, and I thought that was interesting. And the other thing, there was a video that we did, which was I think 5 great delays for worship. So we're going to do one on great reverbs because that's just it's kind of like no brainer. Bruce and I were talking about that before. But and that is one of the great things, Alan, that I was talking about over vacation was for the mainstream side of what I'm going to do, and invariably for the worship side, I'm going to do something called Doppler's Gear Guide, and we'll do the equivalent for a worship musician / worship guitar player. Is that here are some suggested things that I just love or we just love that work really well together. And being able to place them at different price points, and being able to do a little bit of demo work, just talking about signal chain and order and how they make sense together without spending oodles of time, and really giving people enough pointers that they can jump in and kind of go, that's a great start. So I really, really appreciate that. So that's great. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's take a look here. Good. All right, just making sure. Boy, you guys are... all right, hang on. Come on. Okay, there we go. You hang on just 1 second. Let's see if I can get this. No, you're not going to do that. Hang on. How do I get you to resize? Okay. All right, so we're going to, I got it. All right, give me a moment. That was not what I was hoping to do. All right, let's do that. Let's see if that gets us there. Oh, my word. All right, why do you just not want to wrap? Oh, hoody, hoody, ho. Give me a moment. Let's see if I can outsmart this thing. There we go. Getting there. Give me a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I figured out how to word wrap here. All right, let's try that. There we go. No, what a great question. So that gets us into, what does 360-degree preparation really look like? So I need to actually break out some notes here real quick because this is getting good. Thank you very much, Alan. Really appreciate it. WGS. What next? Okay, prep. So music, gear, so on and so forth. So you know what? I'm going to answer that question because, I remember a conversation I had with Larry Mitchell where he was talking about the fact that he's got an extra drive pedal that he leaves in his car just in case he shows up at a jam and needs something to stomp on. He just has one. For the longest time, I haven't put him in. I've got a new minivan, macho. And in the old minivan in the door, I always had a couple of extra sets of strings. And, for my shredded guitars, I always had a couple of extra Allen wrenches. And I was always ready just in case, you broke a string and you were somewhere. And by chance, you had a guitar that maybe in the cubby in the case, there wasn't a pack of strings. Now, I live and breathe with a reunion blues gig bag. That's kind of my go-to thing. And there's always a couple of sets of strings in there and, kind of all the things that I need. One of these little tuners such that if, I'm in the green room and I need to kind of double check some tuning in case I, take the instrument off the platform or, as I'm sitting there and, whatever it is. So there's always an extra tuner. If I'm playing something, like this that had a battery, there would be extra batteries there. There would be an extra cable for this little USB dealio here, as well as a wall plug. If I'm using a pedal board that's powered by batteries, I've got an extra battery, I've got an extra charger, I've got an AC backup, I've got a second guitar. There is always a plan, and this is kind of one of the things that I've learned from touring, is that something always will go wrong to some little extent. There's a church that I play at locally that they asked me to come play from time to time, and for whatever reason, that room has a certain degree of humidity. It's kind of like it's got a dome thing, and for whatever reason, my guitars do not stay in tune in there, and just for whatever reason, the humidity gets captured in there, and it's just a place where they just don't want to behave. So I have to really be on top of my instruments in that particular environment. So that's one of the things, is just be prepared. Get your guitars, if they got tremolos on them, get them as ready as possible to go into whatever environment it's going to be. What a really great question. And which guitar I'm going to play, why I'm going to play that particular guitar with the instrumentation. Again, if there's a second guitar player, and how that again impacts my presets. Lots of meat on those bones, my friend. Thank you for that. Awesome. Good. Ooh, okay. Speaking of a lot of meat on those bones, I'm gonna take that bait. And hang on, I need to be adding that to the list. Strum patterns. So here's the thing, is that this is what I'm going to call, in the moment, worship leader-itis. Worship leaders who lead from rhythm guitar. If you've ever had the experience, if they don't play drums, which many worship leaders actually, they kind of come from the drum kit and they end up picking up a guitar and they find that they have great rhythm, they understand arrangements, and they can sing and they can strum. They aren't the problem group that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the lovely individuals that are at home kind of So that doom ba doom ba doom ba doom ja doom. But if the drum beat is doom ja doom ja doom ja doom boom, and they're going, and that's out of sync with the actual kick drum pattern. This kind of made up my own drum groove in the middle of my strum, and what the kick drum is actually doing is where the band begins to get out of sync. And let's say, for example, I'm the bass player, and I haven't listened to the arrangement, and I hear the guitar player go, I'm going to go, but if it's and I'm going, now that sounds better, but if the drummer is playing something different, now we've created this little war that's happening in the rhythm section. So being able to go and understand quarter notes, eighth notes, 16ths, and be able to go 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4 and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E, 1E and a 2E and a 3E. Be able to identify where that is, and maybe we want to say to the drummer, hey, can you put a kick drum on the and of 3 instead of on the downbeat? So on and so forth. And that's kind of where understanding this rhythm. So again, if we're stuck in a box and maybe we're playing something that's super groovy, but we don't have the language to describe it, that is another thing. So strum pattern and rhythmic mapping. So what does that mean? Again, let's just say the quarter notes are going by 1, 2, 3, 4, and the eighth notes are 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the eighth note triplets are 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and the 16th notes are 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, being able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and be able to identify, if we want to play again the second 16th note of 3, 1E and a 2E and a 3E. 1E and a 2E and a 3E. That would be the second 16th note, 3E and a 3E, so on and so forth. If you're looking for a great exercise, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2, so on and so forth. I call that kick in the can. You're playing each next successive 16th note. Another thing you can do, quarters, eighth notes, eighth note triplets, 16th note. So I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a breath control. And the idea is mapping out notes to quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mapping out notes to eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and mapping out notes to eighth note triplets. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 16th. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. And it's a great way to just kind of get used to knowing where those subdivisions are. And it's again the sort of stuff that we don't ever really learn in worship teams, but it sure is valuable. So say for example you're an intermediate player and you hear the drummer playing something, you're like, how do I decipher if it's 1E and a 2E and a 3E? Well, you just learn to count 1E and a 2E and a 3E, and or you sit down with a drummer and say, I will buy you whatever caffeinated drink if you'll meet a half an hour before or hang a half an hour after. That's an option. Or maybe we can meet up at if you got a drum set somewhere, you can walk me through rhythm as you see it, because most drummers are always, for the most part, very eager to have other people be better at time, playing better in time. Also, setting up having I'm going to call it a band buddy. So, if you are thus so humble, having somebody that's actually just going to go, you suck today. You played out of tune, you played out of time, didn't seem like you knew the arrangements, and on the days that you play in tune, in time, and you really know the arrangements, they go, you know what, today you crushed it. And being able to identify what makes for a good versus bad, what we're going to call, I love this, Guitar Sunday. You know, what is it that we do that's different on the weeks that are there? I can tell you from my experience, you know, one of the things about having a manageable number of songs, repertoire. I guess I do know the list, don't I? But you got to think about it, and that's where this information is such a help. Ultimately, I'm a much, much better musician when I, guess what, know the material inside and out. One of the challenges with teams like this worship leader has their group of songs, and this worship leader has their group of songs, this worship leader has their favorite group of musicians, and this one has their favorite group of musicians, but this worship leader leads this particular week, and that guitar player is sick, and you get moved from here to here, and they've got a different group of songs, so on and so forth. I'm much more in favor of kind of having a common group of songs, kind of moving people in and out, not having an A and a B team if you can avoid it, but that's a personal thing. That's also why you want to be raising people up and have kind of, if you will, your B singers, integrating them, having hopefully taking lessons, same with your guitar players, right? But the idea of being able to know the repertoire, know the chords, know the arrangements, know the parts inside and out, such that you're not glued to the chart. Now, here's the thing, there are lots of people who are fine with being glued to the chart. The challenge is to deliver a really great guitar delivery. What happens in that? Well, that means that you're really ready for what's coming, right? You know the chord changes. You're not like, what chord's next? You know, is it this song? Is it that song? I don't remember. Because a lot of these songs are 3 and 4 chord songs. So if you don't really know the songs, which really means you know them without the chart in front of you, if you don't know the songs, you don't know the songs. So that literally means if you can do it without the chart, I guess you know it. If you need the chart, let's be honest, I guess you don't, right? I don't think you need the chart for that one. Hopefully. You get the point, right? There's songs that we're just like, well, we just know what it is. And that's ultimately why with a worship team, it's really good to have a manageable number of songs, generally speaking, unless the vibe is like, we can throw out any song every time, and, you know, you got a bunch of professional musicians that can read their way through any chart, which is great. The challenge is that does not always bring out the best from a volunteer team that usually is kind of, you know, a bunch of volunteers that sometimes have more time than talent. And even then, they don't have a huge amount of time, right? So the idea is we want to make the bar low enough so that we're taking the majority of the people along with us. A smaller amount of songs means we can execute those songs better. There's also congregational familiarity, which I think is really important. And, you know, I think arguably if you're looking for congregational familiarity, famous, words, question, are they what? That's right, are they singing, right? Because if they're not singing, might be a new song, okay. Might be a song that they're just not that into, or it might be a song that, we do once when that worship leader leads, and maybe they're not that into that song, and they're not familiar with that song, and you're depriving the congregation of an opportunity to go deep into worship. And this is one of the dangers of, when worship leaders are a little too, and here's the things, we're all creatives here, right? We can have an adult conversation about it. But sometimes, I'm going to bring your comment down here, thank you. Sometimes we get caught up in our own expression in worship, and we don't take the congregation along with us. And I guess you probably know how I might feel about that. Okay, hang on a second. There we go. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody here. You guys are having a good old time. All right, there we go. Oh, look at that. Oh, holy cow. Why do you treat me so? Okay, hang on a second. What if I just bring you down much smaller? Is there a word wrap function? There's got to be a word wrap function that I have missed. Corner radius? No. Let's try that. No, I bet that's not going to help. It was worth a try. Okay, hang on a second, folks. I'm learning how to style. All right, let's just do this. Let's see if that works. Okay, hang on a second. It's one thing when you clown yourself. It's kind of funny. Let's do that, and let's do this. Right, the sound runner. Good. I love that you mentioned that. Okay. Okay. So that is a great thing. I love that. No click /IEM. And that is a really, 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 really great point. All right. So, reading your comment here, I've been practicing with a metronome. We don't have click at church. I'd like to get one of two things, either sound or watch, and look into using MIDI from drums for tap tempo thoughts. I have lots of thoughts about all of that. I think it's a great idea. And so let's back up a step. So metronome /Y. So here's, as you talk about practicing, whether it's, chords, whether it's scales, whether it's single string. With the metronome, why does it matter? What is it? And the metronome, if you're listening to some music, your foot starts tapping, and you may not necessarily know that. I'm going to move you down here, Alan. Actually, I'm going to move you down and out. So if you're, when your foot is tapping at your favorite show, you're listening to your band play, and you're like unaware that it's tapping. Basically, what it's doing is it's just keying in to the pulse of the music, which is almost always quarter notes in 4/4 time. Not always, but most of the time. And so in so doing, you're really just kind of going boom, 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 boom. That is basically your point of connection with the band, with where the pulse of the music is. And that is synonymous when you're practicing with a metronome of where the pulse of where the band would be, or where the pulse of where the drummer would be, and you're learning to kind of sync up with that. You're learning to find where the actual tempo of the material is, because it's almost always in the upper left-hand corner. You're learning to find that if you can't play it at that speed, how far you have to slow it down, and then start bumping it up. And one of my favorite things is to actually take a song that maybe there's some weird change that's in there, targeting and isolating in some little targeting and isolating that little tough transition. And just really looping that little. It also doesn't hurt to be able to go, that's a B, that's a G, D, and, that's a B, G, B, and a D. And be able to go, what are those notes? And that's a C, G, C, and an E. And just see that my B is changing to a C, my C is changing to a D. The G's in common. And the bass note there, we're moving from B to C. And that way you kind of go, okay. Nothing shameful about going slowly. So on and so forth, but this concept of the pulse. And also being able to, if there's some sort of arpeggiated pattern, being able to go, all right, that's 5, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3. So as I go 2, 3, 4, 3, I'm thinking about that B moving to the C. And going, oh, so it's kind of the whole pattern is 5, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3. So we know that when we go, we're about to have to change our bass note. And just targeting and isolating stuff like that. So the metronome is where you kind of get this. And one of the things that's interesting is sometimes when we've got a treble chord, what we have a tendency to do, we rush to it because we're so panicked about missing it that we rush it. And that's where click, 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 click. And that's where kind of, I think of it like that little game that they've got in amusement parks where you hit the gopher over the head with the mallet, clack, clack, clack. So you're listening for the downbeat, not only of each quarter note, but the beginning of each measure. Have I pulled ahead at the beginning of each measure? Even if you miss a note there. You also begin to find, oh, do I rush? Do I slow down? What happens? And once you kind of beginning to own your time, life gets much, much better. Own your time. There we go. Great question. So what's neat about the Soundbrenner is that it's a very valuable way to, it's this little watch that kind of sits on your wrist. And also my metronome is not set up. It's usually kind of sitting right about there, and it's sprouted legs. It's probably right over there, but it attaches to my desk. But the folks at Peterson have this kind of unit that goes from the tuner / metronome that I use, that you can extend this thing that sits on your body, and it extends the pulse out. And it's really good to be able to feel the time in your body, so you can kind of feel where that pulse is. But the neat thing about playing, some sort of section with the click or metronome or some sort of MIDI drums or whatever it is that gives you the ability to really find out where you have a tendency to rush. Most of us, for the most part, don't have a problem staying in time. What happens, though, there are times when we speed up or we slow down. And if we don't have some sort of measurement vehicle to notice where we have a tendency to rush or slow down, then we're not able to, know where I rush or drag. And, it means that then you can begin to practice and target and isolate the areas where if you speed up, you just get used to going with the click and it's like, right, okay, I'm not gonna rush. And usually there'll be one chord in particular or one note in an arpeggio or something that inspires you to speed up. MIDI for drums would be great, my friend. Whether it's a click and a drum pattern, all of that is phenomenal. All right. Hello, Deanne. Great to see you. Welcome aboard. Sunny Alice Springs. All right. Good news. Good news. Good news. Good news. All right. Good. 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 You guys are some guitar fanatics. Okay. Let's see if I can get this. I don't know why it's just giving me so much grief on the wrapping, but that's okay. And all right, let's try that. Okay, there we go. So sometimes the band is asked to play hymns, and hymns have a lot of chords that have sevenths, which I don't particularly like, as it sounds old. How do I modernize the sound? That is a great question. Hymns, 7 chords, and modernizing. So I'll go through the good news and the bad news of all of that. If you play at an older congregation where, maybe there's some, and maybe there's one service where kind of everybody from all different age groups comes, attends, or maybe there's kind of an early service for some of the older folks and the later service is a little bit louder. There are folks, let's imagine worship, decides to go punk rock 20 years from now, or whatever the equivalent of punk rock will be 20 years from now, and we're coming to church, and we've kind of poured into the church, and all of a sudden we show up and it's this thing that we don't really resonate with, right? And so we were like, we want to take that, we want to go back and play, Chris Tomlin. And the new worship team is like, well, okay, well, that's cool. We're going to make Chris Tomlin punk. And so again, I'm just saying one of the dangers of this is trying to figure out when the right time to modernize something is and when the right time isn't. And I've done this with Christmas songs. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Christmas songs done the same way. We pull them out. They got 5 million chord changes, and we beat them to death every Christmas, and some of which are really great songs, and some of which are just kind of, they're obligatory versus like they're really great songs, if that makes sense. So the idea is the neat thing about and I'm not I don't know. My hymnal songbook is pretty much non-existent, but I can tell you one of the neat things about the whole thing. 7 chords. There will come a time where 7 chords will be valuable. Might do lounge church, right? The point being, seriously, knowing 7 chords gets us back to kind of how do we break out of the box. Most guitar players are unaware that if you basically took the triads 1 through 5, 1 5 through 5, 1 5 through 5, 1 through 5, 1 through 5, 1 5 through 5, 1 5 through 5, 5, 1 through 5, collectively that's known as major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and major, and we added took the octave and we played the note below it. And added that to the triad. And there are times where the 7 chords something like that, where they enable you to have flavors and colors that we just can't get to with cowboy chords or bar chords or, you know, kind of even just the triads. And so having those underneath your fingertips is one of the great learning points of that. Getting back to your comment, if you're just not feeling those songs, there are some worship songs I'm just like, sometimes they're just a little schmaltzy. And when it comes to hymns, I'm always, as a guitar player, especially with Christmas songs, and I'm better about it now, but you know, some of those Christmas songs, like I said, they're just not always super inspiring. But they got 5 million chord changes, so they are good opportunities to get your G over B's together, where you're kind of going, okay, and you kind of begin to wait and say, okay, that's a G triad with B in the bass, right? And you learn to kind of begin to find the different voicings, you know, and different ways to kind of get these different things happening. You know, that right there is basically an A over B to a B. This guy right here. That's a G over A. And you never know, you might end up in Jazz Fusion Church. That's where the double bass happens, right? All right, kidding, but sort of. But the idea is that there are going to be people who just want it to sound old sometimes. It's just kind of going, you know what? Okay, fine. And if the team's dressing it up, then just, if it's the short version is getting back to this, what are 7 chords? We're just taking the triad and we're adding the 7. So just drop the 7. And find voicings. That are a little bit more interesting. So what I'm doing there, you took a look at a G major bar chord or a C major bar chord there. I'm just taking basically the 6th, 5th, and 3rd string, the 5th, 4th, and 2nd string. That's the 1, 5, and 3, respectively. So if it's a major chord, it's a minor chord. So if it's a major 7, if it's a minor 7, it's a dominant 7. If it's a minor 7 flat 5, that'll give you a little, again, if it's a major chord, I should say major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7 flat 5. So we're just playing the triad, in this case, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5 flat 3, 1 flat 5 flat 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5 flat 3, 1 flat 5 flat 3. And just learning to map those, and you can hear them by ear. Whoa. Slow it down, Doppler. There we go. Basically, I was doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished major, and then back down. And then that's a 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4. And that was toggling 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, 7, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4. And it's a great way to be able to kind of take those and make them sound. Well, I kind of went to the flat 6 there. Oops, sorry. Ah. Hope that's a help. Awesome. That's a great question. And again, kind of the moral story is that sometimes people want to go back in time. And if there's enough people that want to go back in time, I think it's a good thing. And sometimes that means hymns, and sometimes that maybe Here I Am to Worship. Again, I had this conversation with somebody at Summer NAM. If you look at the top 10 at CCLI, you're dialing that clock back a decade. Like for some of those songs, they are old. But there are some people that come in on a Sunday and people are going through stuff. Going back to a time and a place where they can kind of have both feet on the ground is a big gift that sometimes we have the opportunity to give people. And I'm not giving you the dad conversation. I'm not doing that. It's sometimes we just got to remember, it's like, right, there's somebody out there. This allows them to go someplace that is, and I don't feel the overwhelming need to go through personally, but I can understand that that's serving them. And I should have a better attitude myself about Christmas songs. So that's a great comment, though. I love that. Yes, and agreed. There we go. Oh, I love that. I've got it sliding in from the side. All right. Uh, all right. Let's see. Hang on. Let me take a quick moment and poke in over here. Forrest, I love that. Nothing wrong with a bit of schmaltz. Hello, Stephen Whitney. What's going on? Thanks for joining us. Great to see you. There we go. So dialing it back a little bit. Forrest, hey, I totally agree about following the drummer. Worship songs can be pretty programmed. Maybe it makes it fun to throw back some stuff, some odd rhythms or off rhythms. Probably only me, the drummer, I hear, but it makes it interesting. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Some of what we do is very programmed. Like there are a lot of churches that are using tracks, and I don't really see anything wrong with tracks in the sake of that. It enables a number of churches to deliver a produced sound where otherwise they might not, and there's no shame in that. That said, the ability to have the freedom, if it's in the cards for your team to kind of change things up a little bit, is kind of cool. So it's a matter of like, and again, this kind of comes around to like knowing what the kick pattern actually is, and then going, hey, we're going to change it up a little bit. And that is to say, there is a conversation. The bass player and the drummer, so so we still got this driving thing, but there's a, perhaps a little bit less obvious, but maybe it's like 1, 2, and 3, and 4. That is the open hi-hat, in case you didn't know. So the recording is going on the bass, but there's a little thing where the hi-hat there. So I'm basically mimicking with the hi-hat. And I can lift up maybe just a little bit, or lift up all the way, and just not bang it, or maybe the idea is that there is the spoken conversation, the unspoken conversation that happens around kind of how we're going to approach subdivisions and whatnot. So awesome. All right, good. What's going on, Brad? How you doing? Great to see you. Awesome. Okay, good. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to do was check in. The other thing I'm going to be doing is making these shows. Whoa, wait a second. Oh, there we go. That's me paused reading that. We're going to make the shows a little bit shorter as well. So in a moment, I'm going to be getting back to doing something I'm working on in the demo front of things. But, the idea is we want to be able to get in, have a nice, concise conversation such that I'm going to be, it's kind of like, not that I'm comparing myself to a pastor, let me be very clear. But when the message goes long, it makes it hard for people to just kind of manage the other things that are going on around them. And so I want not to be guilty of, taking things longer than they need to be. So I'm going to be whittling these shows down to an hour because I think it's a better way to just kind of make it easy for you to find what you're looking for. And in so doing, I think we're going to end up with a better format. So here's the thing: is I encourage everybody here to just kind of think about some of the things that you would want to focus on here. You've given me some great food for thought, and to a certain extent, I already had some ideas about what I thought was going to be good, but I really value your input because ultimately the show is all about you. And if we're not serving your needs and we're not doing that, then we're failing. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be teaching at the John Petrucci Guitar Camp. We're not going to probably be doing winter Christmas songs there, I can assure you. But I will be back the following Tuesday. So that is to say there will be no worship guitar show next Tuesday night. So I will again miss you. My candor, very, very kind. Thank you very, very much. And, here's the thing. We're a team. That's one of the great things about music is that we get a chance to do stuff together. And so, this is kind of a fellowship of guitar players, fellowship of worship guitar players. Let me rephrase that. And so it means that if we're not actively going somewhere, if we're not actively chasing something, it means we're just kind of floating. And I think enough of us, without being mean-spirited or in any way, attacking, enough of us feel that our worship experience just kind of floats along at the speed of floating. I would love, for each of you to kind of walk away with a sense like, I'm growing with my instrument in ways that are really tangible. So it means that I have to really have a good list of tangibles that we can go over. I can assure you that kind of having a really good sense of chords and triads will do. Thank you very much, Alan. Appreciate that. It is going to be one of the important places. And the idea, again, being able to map them up and down, using different inversions and being able to mix and match them. That was literally the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 1 of G major, kind of played on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings using different inversions. There's 1, 3, 5, 1 flat 3, 5, 5, 1 flat 3, 5, 1, 3. There we go. 1 flat 3 flat 5 and 1 3 5. So that's your little 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord, 1 chord. And that's the equivalent going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, but being much more economical with the chord shapes and being able to utilize them such that if you wanted to play it in one spot, you would be able to do that. And again, that's really great for when you're wanting to do swells or something like that. It's also really good just kind of go, oh, wait a second, the G chord and the C chord have the G in common. The G chord and the D chord have the G and the D in common. Oh, okay, that's good to know. And you begin to become aware of what's happening at the triadic level, which means we will be talking about triads, and we'll be talking about the sound of dyads. And getting used to kind of thinking of triads as thirds and fifths happening at the same time. And being able to hear. Somebody had a light bulb kind of go off there for a second, because here's the thing, is that to a certain extent, I would say all of us every so often, we hear a chord, but we don't know how to find the fingering for that chord. When you begin to be able to hear the dyadic elements that make up a chord, and then kind of when you start adding the different elements of that rest of the chord, okay, that's just, and even, maybe you've been hearing for a long time those simple triads. So literally just there's my third, here's my fifth, and that's hearing them together. As simple as it is, a lot of times we don't look at chords diatonically, that is to say how they sit on top of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again the octave of that major scale. So hearing how those chord tones fall we're not necessarily used to being able to hear that as when you begin to kind of go, oh, I can hear that and that in there. You all of a sudden kind of go, you kind of begin to. So on and so forth. All right. Hang on a second. Yo, I've got to take that bait. I'm going to get out of here in just a sec, but I want to... Oh, stop that. Hang on. I've got to hit the shift key to make this work. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay. So here's the thing. Some of this stuff is conversation over coffee. I'm a big believer in conversation over coffee. Let's see if this one's going to work. Okay. Okay, Brad. I'm creating a phrase here called YouTubed. It is entirely possible that whoever is providing those YouTube links is completely unaware of the nature of what you have to do to transpose songs when you move from key to key on the guitar. So, like, here's the thing. There's old Doug and then there's quote-unquote Pastor Doug. Pastor Doug wants to understand and give people enough grace that I'm kind of like, I would love to believe that people are just simply unaware of how incredibly difficult it makes it to do our job from a YouTube video that's in the wrong key. Nightmare. Nothing, if I'm going to be really honest, irritates me more than not having a chart and having a link to a YouTube video that's in the wrong key. Now, if I don't find a mature way of explaining that to somebody and actually going, hey, this is why this makes my job harder, and just to also kind of go, look, there is a transpose function inside PCO, and there's a series of conversations. Are we, getting the rights and paying CCLI and doing all those other things that go along with all of that? But let's just believe that we are. And somebody just doesn't know that it's actually really hard to transpose, the voicings and the chords and find the right arrangement guitar-wise in a YouTube song that's in the wrong key versus actually going into PCO, and the vocals might sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But it makes it very, very difficult. And sometimes I don't think people have any idea how difficult it makes it for us to do our job. Arguably, it makes it much more difficult because then you're sorting through this thing that the arrangement may be different, the keys different, just all sorts of stuff. And there's got to be an easy way to just kind of go, can we meet over coffee and talk about the YouTube thing? Or, just pick up the phone and just go, hey, can we talk about the YouTube thing and, and why it makes it hard for me as a guitar player to do the job that I want and to be able to make the most of my time in preparation. That's a very reasonable thing. My wife and I have been watching this show. They do use foul language, so if that's a thing that you're not into, they bleep it out, but called Ink Masters. And one of the kind of variations of the show is Ink Masters Redemption. And in that show, somebody's gotten a bad tattoo. Basically it always starts off with them yelling at the tattoo artist, usually, with really, really bad attitude. And the person that did the bad tattoo already kind of knows they gave a bad tattoo most of the time. But the attitude of the person that's coming at them is such a negative thing that they're just kind of like, I just don't want anything of this. So the emotion behind getting a flippin' YouTube track again, I feel you at the deepest level of my being. However, I have attempted to grow past the I live at the level of my emotions and actually kind of go, well, maybe they just don't know, right? Or if they don't know, maybe I've got to find a way to make sure that they hear why it makes it a bit hard as opposed to hear my frustration. And it is good sometimes to go, look, this really is frustrating and I feel this really strongly, so I'm going to do my best to, just kind of do my best. That, but it's just like, it's really frustrating. It makes my job a lot harder. I really want to do a great job, but it makes it hard to do a great job and have a great attitude. And it actually really, really encumbers my process of learning the songs exponentially. And then you can always blame me because Doug said so. Doug from Worship Musician said so. You can quote me on that. Yeah. The riff killer. That's so funny. We just, again, I've been that emotional person way too many times in the framework of worship. It never served me, never served the team, and it never served the worship leader. So if I can encourage you to have that conversation in better ways than I have, that would be fabulous. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:15, and I promised we would go an hour, and it's an hour and 15 minutes, but that was a very, very valuable moment for us to kind of break that down. It's really, really hard. And I think just sometimes explaining it to them, and then it's a different conversation, right? It's a sort of thing, just for last point before we get out of here. I urge you to prayerfully consider. Thank you, Alan. I'm shooting a video. I will. Oops, there we go. Brad, with great pleasure. Those words of wisdom are born out of words of stupidity. I will get some food, but I got a demo to shoot, and I do want to get a little bit of food in me. But the thing is that I want to encourage everybody to judiciously think, when's the best time to go to email, when's the best time to go to text, when the best time to go to coffee, and when is the best time to just pray about it and ask for a little bit more patience. And sometimes we're just not going to get the result we want. And then, they may be like, well, I'm not going to transpose it. The YouTube is what you get. And there are other, conversations to be had then, that may be a moment you just kind of go, maybe this isn't the right situation, or you just kind of go, I'm going to have a stiff upper lip and have it. Maybe God's just trying to use this particular moment to give me a better attitude when I want to have a not better attitude. And I'm speaking first person here. And the other thing is sometimes the other part of it is sometimes as a leader, you might be going through something that's not really fully appropriate for you to share with the rest of your team. Maybe there's trouble at home. Maybe there's health trouble that you're just kind of not able to share with everybody because you just, you're having a hard enough time. Maybe you got an elder family member that's going through some sort of mental thing or physical thing or something. We want to have grace where sometimes we don't get let in on the plot and just kind of go, maybe there's more than I don't know. And this is where praying about it, really kind of, the Holy Spirit will usually give us kind of a little bit of an inkling. So it's like, oh, okay, there is something going on here and I just need to be sensitive. But the other reality is that when you do lead people, there is a responsibility to hear from them. Not everybody's great at hearing. Not everybody's great at talking. I'm working at getting better at all those, and I want to encourage you, to serve yourself, serve your family, because usually this ends up being a boomerang on the family. When we're frustrated about our worship experience, we often don't take it to somebody, that's our leader and just kind of go, hey, I'm having a problem with this. Our family hears way too much about it before we actually kind of go upstream and go, hey, this is hard for me. Can we fix this? And, can we fix this is a great way, can we fix / change this? Change is a better word than can we change this? is a better word. Fix implies that, somebody broke something, and sometimes people get persnickety, right? Again, the tattoo show, it's like some people just can't deal with being wrong. I get it. And so we want to be as gentle as and as cunning as, and in so doing, we're leading up sometimes. All right, close out in prayer. Lord, I give thanks for worship guitar players. What a lovely bunch of human beings, passionate, wanting to do a great job, wanting to serve you, and our love for the instrument that you give us so much joy and pleasure with. I pray that everybody has an awesome 2 weeks until we see one another, and that you would move powerfully in each of our lives, and you would bring us something new. What is next? Giving us that inspiration about like where to go. What is it? How do we find that next thing? So we ask all of this in Jesus' mighty name. We give thanks. We give praise, and together we all said, Amen. All right. Thank you so much. Wish you an amazing 2 weeks, and again, much love and joy. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.